What's up?
What's going on, beautiful people?
What's up, beautiful people, beautiful gamers? Happy Friday!
Happy Friday, TGIF, all of the above.
What's up, Crispy, Kai, Waffle, Kane?
How's everybody's Fridays
Gamer.
going on? Hopefully it's beginning very well.
Combs. Yeah, how's your Friday so far?
Pretty good. It is hot. And so trying to
It's hot in LA.
not sweat into all of my clothing that I wear today. That's what I'm trying to do. What's up, Crispy?
What's up, what's up?
Welcome, welcome. Yeah, it's hot there too. Jeez, it's brutal. We can't use our pool because of the whole COVID thing.
That sucks.
So it's a real bummer.
I wish I lived in a mansion with a pool. I was like,
Right?
just hang out all day in the pool, AC, living the good life. One day, we'll get there.
It's like when you see any of the music videos that are being done at like the musicians' homes.
Oh my God.
You're just like,
You're
can I
like,
just
shut
get
up.
the one wing of your house for a little bit?
Yes, please. Just 2 bedrooms of your entire mansion would be great.
Thank you.
Oh, geez. Shall we get into it?
We shall, because this was one of the stories that was very interesting, as it's not common for Nintendo to have a leak happen.
It's really not. So that Nintendo leak that happened, earlier this week was unprecedented, and it has turned into a moral dilemma for archivists, actually.
Yeah, so for the past week, Nintendo fans have resembled digital archaeologists following a massive leak of source code and other internal documents, appropriately dubbed the Giga Leak. Previously unknown details from the company's biggest games have steadily trickled out. Those poring over the code have uncovered a new Animal Crossing villager, early prototypes for games like Pokemon Diamond, cut characters from Star Fox, a very weird Yoshi, and strange titles like Hockey RPG. Perhaps the biggest discovery has been a Luigi character model from Super Mario 64.
I think the Luigi news was what I heard the most. Like, Luigi was trending, and everyone was talking about Luigi, and I'm like, I thought he was in this game already. I have clearly never played Super Mario 64. So, from a historical and preservationist perspective, the leak is an incredible find. It's a rare look into the process and discarded ideas of one of the most influential and secretive companies in video games. But for those preservationists digging through the data, that excitement is tainted by a moral dilemma. The origins of the code leak are still largely unknown, but it's likely that it was obtained illegally. That presents a pertinent question. Does the source of the leak tarnish all that historians can learn from it?
It's a good question, because as archivists, as an archivist who goes by the handle Mr. Talida said, it says, or this individual says, it puts a bad taste in my mouth a bit about the leak, to be sure. But perhaps my curiosity about the data is overriding my moral compass somewhat in this case. Because I can't say I'm unhappy to see the data released. The volume of new knowledge and understanding that this leak has brought is at times overwhelming.
So some people might be asking, what is the big deal? Well, a skinny Yoshi may not seem that important. When you put it all together, the leak is an unprecedented look into video game history. Archivists are still going through the cache, but so far they've already uncovered not only completely unknown games, but also new details about how some of the most influential Nintendo titles were created. Some of those details have since been inserted into builds of the games. You can see what an unused beach area in Ocarina of Time would have looked like, or get a glimpse at an enemy that didn't make it into SM64. Mr. Talida likens it to art historians using X-ray imaging techniques to see the layers underneath a Leonardo da Vinci painting. Only in this case, we're able to see the steps designers like Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka took when creating some of their most defining works.
Mr. Talida goes on to explain, and this is, quote, what he says. It says, in more practical terms, leaks can actually give us important historical and chronological context that we lack from just the final released product. Every commented out of block. Every commented
out block of code, like it was code-written and then like blacked out afterwards.
I had a weird moment there, being like,
rereading that, I was like, wait.
Every commented out block of code, nearly every draft of a sprite sheet, every build with less than perfect controls and abandoned game mechanics. He goes on to say they all give us incredible valuable insight into how these games formed and why. In some cases, we can even learn important details about who worked on each aspect of the game, knowledge which is often lost to time.
Leaks aren't entirely new territory. In the past, source code or screenshots for canceled games have been unearthed, sometimes for now defunct game studios and publishers who won't or can't fight to secure their intellectual property. But the Nintendo Giga Leak is notable both for its scale and the high-profile nature of its content. Mr. Toledo says to have the full unfiltered source code to a seminal classic like Super Mario Kart, or to have the early sprite work for The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, or to have multiple early builds of Yoshi's Island, or to have 3D models created by Yoshiaki Koizumi for the earliest Nintendo 64 technology tests. The scope of what has been leaked here exceeds all expectations and precedent, and fulfills many of the wildest fantasies of game history enthusiasts.
And then there's more than just these fascinating discoveries. The leak also includes internal emails, some with identifying information raising privacy concerns. This, coupled with the possibility of unscrupulous origins of the content, make it for a morally complex situation. It's reminiscent of the Sony Pictures hack from 2014, which revealed all kinds of salacious internal details that were obtained illegally. Fans clearly want to learn more about Nintendo's games and how they're made, as countless Giga Leak tweets can attest to this. But not everyone is happy about how it happened. Brian, an individual who runs a Mega Man fan site called Rockman Corner, and has been sharing details from the leak, said this: "To say this makes me feel uncomfortable is an understatement, and yet there's a certain allure here. You can't help but look. You know it's wrong, but there it is. Luigi in Mario 64.
I just wanted to pause for a moment and ask chat, what do you think about this? What do you think about these leaks? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's good that we know about this? Do you think it's bad because it's a violation of, the security of this information? Is it exciting? What do you think about it? Because a lot of the news that we do get, that we do report on here, is from leaks. Because if that information is out, I personally feel like, well, it's out, we have to report on it. But I'm also thinking, I wish those leaks didn't quite happen in the first place, and I'm okay with just waiting for official announcements. Legend says, most of those leaks were strong rumors when I was a kid, and we accepted it as truth regardless. It doesn't hurt anything, it's just history. To continue on, there have also been more practical implications for how Nintendo operates moving forward. The company does occasionally celebrate its history, like when it released the canceled Star Fox 2 on the SNES Classic and later through Switch Online, but it's also a company that fiercely protects its intellectual property, frequently shutting down infringing fan projects or YouTube videos and dream games. This leak could potentially lead to this company tightening up even more. Mike Mika, studio head at Digital Eclipse, a developer focused on the authentic re-releases of classic games, tweeted, "Real talk, this Nintendo leak is bad on so many levels. It hurts them, it hurts fans, and it turns the topic of preservation into a topic of security and tightening the grip on intellectual property regardless of its historical or educational value to history."
And regarding all of this, Nintendo has actually declined to comment. So it is hard to know exactly how the company will change, if at all. As Mr. Toledo notes, it's likely any potential operational changes will be internal and done in the service of preventing leaks like this from happening in the first place. Toledo goes on to say that, "I do imagine their own internal data access policies will change as a result. And I'm sure they will be re-examining what they share with their partners, how that data is made accessible, and for how long. In effect, scoring a huge cache of data like this from a partner is probably going to be much more unlikely in the future."
That said, the leak does at least appear to show that Nintendo is meticulous when it comes to documenting its own history. Not every studio keeps source code for unfinished or unreleased games dating back several decades, but despite the fervent interest, that history doesn't appear to be something the company wants to share with the general public.
And Brian from Rockman Corner goes on to say that, "In a perfect world, this leak will encourage Nintendo to be more open about their developmental history, to partner with preservationists and archivists to allow the public a means to see and explore all of those lovely, quote, what could have been. How great would it be if Nintendo themselves freely distributed those mythical Mario 64 Luigi assets, or Super Donkey, the primordial, highly experimental Yoshi's Island precursor. But in my heart of hearts," Brian says, "I know there will be consequences. I foresee Nintendo being less open about what goes on behind the scenes."
I love Coombs' reply. I cannot and will not condone illegal practices. If it wasn't legal, then I must say naughty, naughty. I mean, I personally, I guess, can't condone like hacking either. I think it's a cool, as Legend does say, like, I think it is a cool part of gaming history. If I were working on these projects, I would feel really embarrassed if like work that I did, that I scrapped, that I didn't want out there was out there. I think that would kind of suck, but I wish, I agree with, the article we sourced that said in a perfect world, this would encourage Nintendo to, show this as part of its history. I mean, when I think of a company that's so, tight on its IP, I also think of Disney, and Disney shows a lot of, like, in the works, behind the scenes, part of their history. I think it would be cool if Nintendo did that too.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about Disney as a parallel to this. Like, when you think of films and TV, you think of Disney. When you think of gaming, you think of Nintendo. I mean, these are words that are associated with these genres of entertainment, right? Mm-hmm. So when we look at Nintendo, I think a lot of us kind of feel like, I would like to know more about Nintendo outside of the final product. I would like to kind of have an idea of what goes on behind the scenes. As a consumer who might put a lot of money towards this entity, it would, make sense to give me some glimpse into it. It's fun to learn and to see and to know these things. So maybe what they'll do is they will tighten the aspects, like someone, Guff was saying, the emails do raise privacy concerns, and I'm all about that. But maybe they'll actually see this and go, you know what? Maybe we should be more forthcoming with certain information that, especially after time has gone on so far from when Mario 64 was around, share it, show us.
Right, it's just more content for them. It's content that, gamers want to consume. It makes them feel, more a part of it. How cool is it to play a game that you know and love, and then years later you find out there was all this, like, additional information that, like, could have been. Like, that is so cool. And I agree. I hope that they really see this as more of an opportunity to, add privacy steps, I guess, to internal emails and those kinds of things. So those don't get leaked, but also, share the information that they really want to put out there. It is, I guess, very opportunistic. I don't think that's the right word. But our next story is also about a leak, and we're reporting on more news that came from a leak as well.
Yeah, so we shouldn't be surprised with everything coming up, especially next gen, seeing the Nintendo leak, but also now hearing more about Halo Infinite, which I think a leak like this helps Halo right now, as it looks like the multiplayer is going to be free to play, and it is going to reach up to 120 frames.
So, an Irish retailer has revealed that Halo Infinite's multiplayer mode will be free to play and support up to 120 FPS. Smith's Toys Superstores briefly posted details about Halo Infinite multiplayer on a promotional page this week before quickly removing them once the internet discovered the references.
And the listing read as this: the legendary Halo series returns with the most expansive Master Chief campaign yet, and a groundbreaking free-to-play multiplayer experience. Enjoy up to 120 frames per second and greatly reduced load times, creating seamless gameplay with the Xbox Series X.
I love this. This is like the second time this week that we've heard, some leak from some retailer. There was the Call of Duty Cold War Doritos leak. It was posted on like a Doritos package. There was some like Cold War promotional ad. And let's go Smith Toys Superstore. Love it.
Smith Toys.
So Cloveril, an Xbox leaker that accurately revealed previous Halo Infinite details, backed up the claims. Not sure how. But they did back up the claims that the multiplayer mode will be free to play. The leaker also claims that the arena mode will aim for up to 120 FPS and that multiplayer Halo Infinite will include a battle pass system. I don't know how I feel about that. And new customization options.
And here's what we know. 343 Industries has not revealed much about the multiplayer aspects of Halo Infinite yet. The game developer did post a lengthy blog responding to Halo Infinite questions yesterday, including addressing the criticism around the graphics and visuals in the game.
John Junisek, a community manager at 343 Industries, said, quote, "In many ways, we are in agreement here. We have work to do to address some of these areas and raise the level of fidelity and overall presentation for the final game. The build used to run the campaign demo was work in progress from several weeks ago, with a variety of graphical elements and game systems still being finished and polished," which I am hesitant to believe.
Yes, I am too. I am not hesitant to believe that they were okay with this leak, because this helps, as we see, some in the chat expressing that this is exciting information. Leaks like this might actually be looked at internally as like, what's the response? Well, response is seemingly positive. Okay, let it sit for a little bit. Let the internet get its day. Say, okay, take it down.
Right. I mean, this is good news for me because, I planned on playing Halo Infinite anyway, but I'm definitely going to play this free-to-play version. If I can just download the multiplayer, just hop in. I understand why they want a Battle Pass system, maybe to compete with, like, Call of Duty multiplayer and the Battle Pass there, but I know League of Legends isn't a shooter at all, but I like how there's no Battle Pass. I like how I can just enjoy it and spend money, as I please versus, feeling like every season I'm obliged to basically repurchase the game. I hope the multiplayer is going to be really good. I hope they polish up the graphics because it doesn't seem like they will. And I just want Xbox to uphold its promises.
Yeah, I think that's a very core aspect of a lot of what people are saying with regard to Halo, specifically the Xbox Series X. Is Microsoft, you say these things, let's see you stick to them.
Right.
Let's also make sure that we're not putting ourselves in the place of, if it is going to be a Battle Pass system, is it going to be one of those pay-to-win aspects, which I know people can get very hesitant towards, or is it going to be one of those systems that actually is just keep playing and you'll eventually unlock all of it? So wherever they start to shift into that kind of, monetization, I'm okay with, if it's not, the one that is pay to win, or the only way you can ever achieve this look is by paying in order to achieve it.
Right. I agree. I think, it's okay to buy the Battle Pass, but you can, earn everything in it and have some free perks. I think it's nice that Fortnite does that, and you can, level up your Battle Pass in a lot of games and then decide to purchase it afterwards. I think it's pretty cool. I wonder what cosmetics would be in a Battle Pass, because I remember playing Halo Online and on Xbox Live, and you could customize, your whole suit pretty well. And that's kind of all I wanted. I don't know what else they could really add to that. Maybe weapon wraps, but it's hard for me to imagine weapon wraps in Halo because it's usually just the standard weapons you fire with.
Yeah, I think there's a plethora of ways that it could go, specifically with maybe partnering with other games that could work within the skins or the realm of the Halo universe for aesthetics. Maybe they'll try to go the route because they are Halo and that is a name that is iconic within gaming. Maybe they will try to go the route of inquiring partnerships with intellectual properties where we'll get some sort of
true.
Spartan uniform that's related to maybe something from Marvel or DC. It depends on the route that they want to go with that. But I think there's a lot there and it could be a lot of fun. I just don't want to see it go the way of being too focused on the microtransactions,
right,
and not delivering on the gameplay.
I love how Kai says, a Link suit, a Samus suit. Wait, this is not Nintendo. A Gears of War suit. The Legend wants to speak the Samus suit into existence, have some crossover here. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of opportunity for what they could do. I wonder how they're going to do it as well because, for example, Fortnite is kind of known for doing all these collaborations and having Aquaman and Captain America and Harley Quinn, all these different characters in their game, but Halo very much exists in the Halo universe, whereas Fortnite is kind of a metaverse of, I guess, kind of what we already have, or it's more of an extension of pop culture, and Halo really isn't. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do, but at least I'm glad multiplayer is free to play.
Yeah, same. And I do hope to see 343 come out and address, these leaks confirm them to be factual and use this as a means to generate more positive attraction towards Halo right now, as a lot of it has been since that Xbox Series gameplay showcase. It's been fairly negative for Halo.
It has. 343 really does need to, post more positive Halo news. I think this is great news. I hope they double down on this leak and actually, confirm that it is real and that it is coming.
Very much the same. And there is another first-person shooter. Well, speaking of Fortnite, is Ubisoft taking on Fortnite with its Battle Royale, which is Hyperscape, which we talked about a few weeks ago, and it officially launches on August 11th.
Ubisoft's Hyperscape, the studio's new futuristic free-to-play battle royale shooter, will be released on August 11th for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. The game is currently in open beta on PC, but that beta runs for just a few more days, ending on August 2nd.
So the launch day marks the first time that the game will be available on consoles. When it's out, Ubisoft will also introduce a new weapon, a new limited-time game mode, and a 100-tier battle pass, and more, according to a tweet from the official Hyperscape Twitter account.
Hyperscape was first announced just this month with a technical test that was available on July 2nd to some Twitch and YouTube creators. Within 30 minutes of their stream starting, the game had rocketed to the top of the Twitch charts, but right now it's much less popular on Twitch. I tried to find it earlier, and I don't think it was remotely up there on the charts.
No, and Nick Stat from The Verge went hands-on with that technical test and found the game to be fast and chaotic with some interesting ideas that actually set it apart from other Battle Royale games. But Hyperscape is a late entry into an already crowded genre that includes popular games like Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, PUBG, and Apex Legends.
Ubisoft is also currently under heavy scrutiny following widespread allegations of abuse and harassment across the company, resulting in the departure of multiple executives. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot outlined a number of internal changes coming to the company in an email sent to staff on July 2nd, and last week Ubisoft announced that employee bonuses would be tied to their ability to create a positive and inclusive workplace environment, which I don't know how that works, because if someone came up to me and said, yes, I'll give you a bonus if you're going to be positive and nice, I feel like it turns into a competition of who's the nicest? I don't know. We'll see how that ends up turning out.
Is it genuine? Is it just there for the bonus? It's kind of like the stuff around Facebook supposedly is you have to always be happy or have a smile on. So I'm never a fan. Yeah, I'm never a fan of any place that's this is a thing that you have to do. Just let the people be genuine, and if they're unhappy, figure out why.
Definitely.
So one of the things that was really interesting about Hyperscape was some of the online reviews. And one of them was saying, I like the game because I'm a fan of fast-paced video games. But when I was playing this, I thought and said, this is kind of like Apex Legends. So I felt like they kind of copied Apex in some aspects. But other than that, it's a great game.
Another review said, worst game and gameplay, total copy, didn't expect Ubi to publish a copy game, Call of Duty with Valorant and Overwatch theme, and weapon damages are so low and bad, healing rate, no words, broken game.
Some of these reviews are really
They're scathing.
Rough. Here's another one that says, this game is intended for children, takes zero skill and ability, the gunplay is horrible. The movement is horrible if you don't have the hacks. Infusing your weapons so that they don't fire like Nerf guns is a horrible concept. Microtransactions in a battle pass in beta is just unreasonable. It just seems like another money grab. VR.
Another short review says, sugoi, which is Japanese for great. Sugoi, I love it. It's so perfect.
I just love the short positive one, and then you have these longer here's why I don't like it ones.
Right, yeah.
It's like the Gabe Newell comment regarding the Xbox Series X. I prefer it because it's better. Moving on. You're
thumbs up.
Great complete sentence. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
For real.
And one of the other reviews was I really like how the game feels. It feels like people have too much health. It takes forever to kill someone. But I feel it could also be the fault of the guns doing little damage.
And the last review we pulled says, really fast-paced, amazing battle royale, keeps you on your toes, highly recommend to people bored inside the house. Looking at all of these reviews, I tried to pull, a variety. There were some in there that was like 5 stars. Game looks cool. Have never played it. And I'm like, that's not a review. That's just you trying to leave a comment here.
I've heard the food's delicious. 5 stars.
Right? Yeah, I was trying to pull reviews that didn't sound like they were paid or fake. It seems overall that this is a very fast-paced game. The guns don't do a lot of damage, and it might not be that fun. Like, it seems like it's very fast, but also kind of chaotic and, arguably too fast that if you get into a shootout, you can't really shoot each other because you're both just, like, zipping around the map.
Yeah, I think that's where some of the aspects of concern of it being a copy of Apex are there. Like, it's a fast pace. This is how you move around. I think also if the guns aren't doing the damage that they should be doing, or at least what we think they should be doing, it makes fights feel more taxing based on the fact that just how many times do I need to shoot somebody before they go down? So that balance needs to be there. And I do agree, like, when you release a beta, you have your battle pass available during the beta, it does appear that you're like, oh yeah, you're just trying to snag up some more money. Do you actually care about the game you're putting out?
I think it's cool if there's like a founder's pass in the beta or like a special like beta only exclusives. I think that's cool. But yeah, just like the general, you could buy the battle pass right now. It's like, but your game isn't even out yet, and you're asking me to buy this is a little sus. I wonder if Hyperscape is going to be popular. I am a little bit doubtful. What do you think?
Same. There was an opinion piece not too long ago that I saw that I think this is the commentary where a lot of it's going is like, there's too many battle royales. I mean, they're just come to a point where we all can just be like, okay, this is a genre that everyone who's like, we need to make money fast, a free-to-play battle royale experience, that's how to do it. And it's because the other models have worked for games like Fortnite, Call of Duty, even, Apex, PUBG. Now, because there's too many of them, it's like, yeah, hey, Ubisoft, you're kind of like late to the party, and you're coming to the party with something that feels like a copy or looks like a copy. It just, it's not sitting right with people, and it makes sense.
And I was really doubtful that Warzone would take off, but Warzone has been incredibly popular. It really has. It has, but it's also, tied to Call of Duty, which is already, very well known. Everyone really liked Modern Warfare. And I think Warzone kind of brought maybe a more, like, trolly or meme-y way of playing, because there were like the kill streaks and it's really, really fast paced and you can redeploy all the time. The gulag. It did bring a lot of new things to Battle Royale. And, it has really held its own. It's still really popular. But the Battle Royale space is really hard to break into, and unless you're really bringing a fresh take on Battle Royale, I don't think, a new Battle Royale is going to find success.
Yeah, and that might be what they're seeing, especially there was so much interest specifically with this when it first hit and the streamers were playing it, but now it's like, can you really find it? Are people really interested in Hyperscape? I don't know. I mean, what does the chat think? What do you guys think? Do you guys think that Hyperscape has something to offer, or does it just feel like, no, we already have enough Battle Royales, I'd rather just go watch the ones that I'm already fans of?
Right? How I'm feeling is like, if I want to play a Battle Royale, I'll just play Fortnite. Like, I don't need a non-Fortnite-like experience. Maybe I'll download it and, play a few games and see how it feels, but I don't anticipate that it's going to, add anything that I don't already get from Fortnite.
Yeah. And Guff says there that I don't have a Battle Royale that I like yet. And that's a really interesting, comment to hear, only because it's like, that also might be the case. Maybe Ubisoft's like, well, what is not there? And what if we combine this idea with that idea? Does it become its own unique idea that people might get into? So someone like Guff could go and say, hey, maybe this will be the one that I end up liking.
I love how Kai's fake review got timed out. I don't play shooters, so great game, good graphics, 10 out of 10. The dots, gotcha. Also, I agree with Legend that people do want to see, a more developed game. People don't really want to play something that's, totally new and bare bones if it doesn't have a lot to offer in it. I do agree with that as well.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens when it officially launches. Does it get the interest on console? Does it maintain the interest it had initially when it came out via, stream with that closed beta and closed invite? Mm-hmm. We'll keep an eye. August 11th, it's right around the corner. Maybe Hyperscape will be that new IP everyone's talking about.
But our next topic of news is about Anthem, as Anthem 2.0 devs detail how they're making shooting and looting more satisfying.
So do you guys remember Anthem? Do you remember this game that was really hyped and everyone was looking forward to it? And then it came out and everybody was like, hey, this is great. Oh, wow. In-game content halfway through the game. What?
And also that whole, wasn't Anthem, no, it was Artifact. I always mix up Anthem and Artifact. I'm just kidding, I take it back. Some of you will get that reference.
It's okay, because if we're going to make a looter shooter, you got to be good at the shooting, and you got to be good and satisfying with the looting. Anthem arguably missed the mark on both of those fronts. Shooting wasn't as responsive as it could be. Enemies were crazy bullet spongy, and most of the loot you collected didn't really feel unique or actually useful.
Earlier this year, BioWare announced a full Anthem 2.0 redesign is in the work, with Star Wars The Old Republic developer BioWare Austin taking the reins, and today we got some details about how they're planning to fix the game's core shooting and looting mechanics.
So most of the new Anthem development update focuses on loot, which BioWare is promising that they're going to make it more plentiful, useful, and easy to find. And we're going to break down what they are saying are the key improvements that they're working on.
The first one is respect your time. So increase the frequency of loot drops. Loot is viable more often. All items are better and more competitive, but there's still a chance of getting something exceptional, and all loot rarities have strategic value throughout progression.
They're also touting embrace choice. So you can actually pursue specific loot without relying on randomness alone. There will be quests, specialized vendors, and unique loot tables. You will also be able to modify your loot, including re-rolling inscriptions and leveling up items.
They're looking to create a rewarding loot experience. Loot feels exciting and more noticeable when it drops and is celebrated when collected. Rare enemies, aka walking treasure chests, create exciting moments to get a burst of loot all at once.
They want you to keep it accessible and immediate. They're going to reveal and equip loot right away. Complete revamp of the equipment sheet, including a detailed stat sheet, which they haven't shown yet. And the equipment sheet can be accessed from anywhere, allowing you to easily see what you have equipped in each slot.
They're working on the reliability of equipment and rewards. Each item has an inscription budget based on its power and rarity. No more useless items because they were missing must-have inscriptions. Exceptional items are about getting the exact type of bonuses you want instead of maxing values on every bonus.
And they intend to scale for the future, that your power cap can be easily increased and the loot system scales accordingly. And they will have advanced telemetry data that allows us to identify trends and make meaningful, balanced changes.
On the subject of shooting, BioWare has already managed to make gameplay more responsive, with enemies reacting to hits near instantly. They're also looking to make melee attacks more useful, and a number of new weapon concepts are also in the works, which you can check out.
So it definitely seems like BioWare Austin are trying to head in the right direction with Anthem 2.0, but there is still a lot to prove. Yes, it will be great to have a completely designed shooting and looting mechanics that we find fun. But what are they going to do to make Anthem truly stand out from similar games on the market? And hopefully they'll update us on that in the future.
Anthem is available now on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Don't expect Anthem 2.0 until at least next year at the earliest.
So I don't know how much Anthem you got in, Kaizo, when it came out. This was a game I was excited about. The ability to do the flying and then to get into the shooting. That you felt like an Iron Man simulator a little bit. There was just this, there was a lot to it visually that like pulls you in right away. But then the moment you actually start to get into the gameplay, you start to fight, you realize how fast you hit the ceiling of the actual experience of Anthem. And that was where it was like, almost felt like the more you played it, the faster you got bored.
I think it's just wild. Like, looking at this gameplay right here, this game looks so fun. And I remember before it launched, there was so much hype about Anthem. Like, it looks really cool. And it's honestly so impressive how this gameplay, you can see on the screen, is not fun. I never played it because I heard that it was pretty lackluster. It was kind of a shell of a game. It looked cool, but, you know, as you said, once you get into it, you hit the ceiling pretty quick, and there's not really any substance there. So I never got into it because I was just advised not to. I wonder if these changes will salvage the game. I'm a little bit skeptical because if you don't get shooting and looting right the first time, I'm not sure if you really understand what it means to shoot and loot in a video game. So I hope, you know, this gets turned around because, you know, people wanted this game to be really good, but we'll have to see if it's actually going to get executed.
Yeah, and it just look at some of the comments there that, like Kai was saying and Gamer was saying there, that the E3 trailer was what everyone was like, oh my God, what is Anthem? This looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And there is so much potential when you look at it from the surface. But then once you dive in, you're like, wow, this is a kiddie pool I'm jumping into. And it becomes an underwhelming experience. So hey, we're going to do an Anthem 2.0. It's great. It sounds great, but we've been fooled once. You know what I mean? So right. How are we gonna jump into this with that, 2.0 is gonna actually make it better type energy when that's the energy we came in with in the first place?
For real, I wonder what's going to happen with this. I hope that, you know, after announcing these updates, we're actually going to see them. We're going to see them done well, that this isn't a kind of Star Citizen thing of the game's going to be good one day, 8 years later. I feel like Anthem is also, you know, really turned into like a meme. Like, if you have a game that doesn't end up being good, people are like, oh, so it's like Anthem. And Anthem has kind of been synonymous with like a flub of a game.
That's a great point, yeah.
Which is really sad. It would be great if this could be turned around, but I'm not so sure if it'll happen. It'll take a lot of work for Anthem to fix its reputation.
It's a bummer because BioWare has had success in the past. I mean, we've got to take a look at BioWare and break them down and say, hey, this is a company that we feel, you know, does well in gaming overall. And I think there's a lot of hype surrounding, you know, what is going to happen with the next Mass Effect. When's that going to drop? When are we going to, you know, get our hands in on that universe again? So there's that, but maybe we need a game like Anthem. And I say that like for the sense of being able to have a direct comparison of what not to do, right? You mentioned what you mentioned, and I was like, you know, that's funny to hear it, but then I'm like, but maybe we do need those things. Like, hey, we're setting out to develop this game. Let's not be an Anthem. Sounds good. Sounds good.
It's like the yin and the yang. You can't appreciate how good a game is unless you've seen how bad a game can be.
That's right. It's like BioWare has unintentionally created the standard of let's not make a very flashy trailer, give you all the elements of what you might think could be a good game, and then deliver none of those things.
It's so sad. But moving on to a game that we hope will deliver all of those things is we have some Cyberpunk 2077 news.
There would be nothing more disappointing if Cyberpunk 2077 somehow became an Anthem in gaming. I don't want to talk about that.
It would be unforgivable.
Let's talk about this, because what it looks like we're finding out is that the dialogue scenes will allow V, that is the name of the main character, to be able to look around for suspicious movement.
Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the most anticipated games for this year, with preview presentations that showed its different aspects, characters, gameplay, and more. It's shaping to be one hell of a game to play when it launches this coming November 19th.
So several gaming publications, not DGN, CD Projekt Red, please provide us with the ability to try out the gameplay preview of the game, and all of them are impressed with its performance. They say that gameplay was immersive, the world was vibrant, and several interesting features shone brightly despite its limited time. And one of those was dialogue sequences, which seemed to have a different take compared to other games with the same feature.
According to the official PlayStation Magazine September 2020 issue, a dialogue in Cyberpunk 2077 is different and can either be peaceful or get ugly depending on the player's behavior. They can actually look around their surroundings, making their chats with NPCs super immersive and almost realistic. It also gives them a hint of what's going on around them.
For you to see when attempting to negotiate with potential muggers, for instance, there might be movements from other characters surrounding you or your part. The protagonist who you play as can actually glance around his or her sides to check on any hint that the situation might get bloody. Players can check if there's a suspicious car boot or glance at the guy behind the counter that they're talking to or behind the guy that they're talking to. It seemingly slowly will who might seemingly slowly take something out from behind his back while you're in this dialogue.
These signs that players can catch early on could help them evade deadly gunfire if things go south, or they can use this to their advantage to make the negotiations go into their favor, or just wipe the opposing side out to ensure their own safety. The choice is theirs to make.
Yeah, Kai, that's exactly what they're saying, is that somebody could be going to pull their gun out while you're mid-dialogue, and you can see that and then react to it. So this was a actual particular feature in Deus Ex Human Revolution back in the day, according to OPM UK, and it worked pretty well, which we agree with, and if you got to play Human Revolution, you'd know this. It would have made its gameplay so immersive and so realistic and thrilling that it would be like in old Western American movies where you have the standoff, as they call it, and everyone's looking around nervously, waiting for your enemies to move and slowly reaching out for your gun so that you can get the initiative. Happens in Ghost of Tsushima as well, that moment of when's the strike going to occur.
And as you all know, Cyberpunk 2077 will be available on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Google Stadia, and PC. Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 versions will be launched when the next-gen consoles get released this coming holiday 2020.
The more we talk about this game, the more we learn about Cyberpunk 2077, the more I just want to take like a 3-month coma, 4-month coma, and just wake up in November ready to play. Seriously, there's so much about this game, and I'm like, I need this now.
At this point, I'm like, there's more news on Cyberpunk? There's more features? Right? Like, I thought that we've kind of, seen the limit of how many different cool things you can have in a game, and they're like, nope, we've got more. Nope, we've got more. Like, this game is the perfect example of, like, if you're going to take a really long time to create a game, it should be this good, because they've actually, you've taken the time to really perfect all these situations, add all these nuances, add all these different ways to complete missions, make just interactions with NPCs that much more immersive versus just clicking through dialogue. I am always impressed by the announcements from CD Projekt Red. I would be shocked if this game wasn't absolutely phenomenal and just a total blast to play.
Yeah, because when you look at it play and you see it handled and you see people experiencing it, and to know that these individuals who got to get their hands on a limited gameplay experience have said that they were extremely impressed. I think CD Projekt Red is well aware of what they're sitting on when it comes to a possible new standard for an RPG or storytelling within gaming. Like, we might get to the place as gamers where it's like, if you're not giving me something that's going to impact me like Cyberpunk 2077, don't even put your game out. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
There's so much going on here. When you think, how many times do you get into a dialogue scene and you just want to churn through, like you were saying, you just want to click through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that here. Because it's possible you're having a dialogue with someone who, out of nowhere, their goons behind them pull out their gun, and the next thing you know, you're in a shootout.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Cyberpunk 2077 created kind of its own genre. I feel like when we see future games, we're going to see like, oh, this is a Cyberpunk-like game, because it's not just open world, it's not just an RPG. Like, it's so much more to that, and I agree with what you said, that gamers are going to be expecting, that level of detail in the future, and I think developers will have to denote, like, or notate, like, yes, this is a Cyberpunk-like game, or this is not a Cyberpunk-like game.
That's true, because that's kind of what Grand Theft Auto did for that third-person open-world aspect. We still refer to a lot of open-world games like within GTA as that dialogue. I actually hope that this is the case, because what they talk about from how the story branches out based on what you do when you pick your character, it's like the game that influenced this is Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop game that you create your character, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much to what Mike Pondsmith did with the Cyberpunk tabletop experience that was completely influenced by D&D and TTRPGs. That, you know, when you see the Dungeons and Dragons game come out sometime later this year, if they don't give you options that you are seeing from Cyberpunk that you know are directly related to what that company was able to create, you would be like, no, I don't want to play your game, right? Or you would be like, I'm not as interested as I am, where you're saying that every time I play, I'm going to have a different experience.
Right. I think it's good that they've kind of harkened back to, you know, their roots and really taken, you know, the tabletop aspects and put it into this game. For example, Disco Elysium was a total hit, and that was, you know, very TTRPG-like, where you do have to roll, and sometimes things won't work in your favor, and sometimes they really will. And I think it's good to pick and choose, you know, the parts of games that people really like, that really work, that pull you back in, and to apply them to new games and new genres and, you know, new formats. Instead of just, you know, trying to do something new based on nothing that has like really worked. I think Cyberpunk has done, you know, a good job of, you know, looking at its roots, you know, really paying attention to what makes a game fun at its core and making sure that those elements are really in the game.
Yeah, and to know that you have this, and what else is there that we don't know about? How much, and I've mentioned this before, how much of Keanu Reeves' character do we not know about, and the involvement into where that goes? Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, that I'm just thinking about is, like, Cyberpunk 2077 is the first game in my mind where I'm like, I want to play that through, like, 3 or 4 times in a row. Like, I want to play through, maybe do the main story playthrough, mm-hmm. and pick the one upbringing that, you know, puts me in the outskirts. And then the next thing I do is the full story playthrough, see how the game turns out, where it's maybe more of like the wealthier upbringing or the military one, like, and then do it again. Full evil, full good, like however to make those choices. There's so much here with the game that there are people that could just life the Cyberpunk 2077 experience for content creation, for streaming, and just for their own recreational time.
There's, you know, so much replayability with this game. Thank you so much, Kai, for the dono. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Koom says Cyberpunk 2077 type game with Fortnite-like events and aspects similar to GTA 5. Sounds like so many buzzwords. I'm sure some like exec high up is like writing that down right now, going like, yes, I'll just write down all these things. Don't know how to actually make those happen, but one day we'll figure something out.
Yeah, exactly. And they did mention, and the fact that we don't know much about this, but it hasn't been denied, is that a multiplayer aspect of Cyberpunk 2077 is expected down the road. What's going to be in that? How is that experience going to be?
A few years down the road, we are going to expect a Cyberpunk multiplayer experience. They have kind of just talked a little bit about that, especially when we were talking about the scam with Cyberpunk that happened yesterday. There's no beta for Cyberpunk, but there might be a beta for the multiplayer years down the road.
Right.
I feel like
what?
They haven't said anything about that either, you know, what that's going to be, what that multiplayer gameplay is going to be like. Is it going to be like GTA Online, but in Cyberpunk? I'm glad that they're putting it a few years down the road, honestly, because that means they're going to, you know, they finished
I got chills when you said that. I just want to point that out. When you said, is it going to be a Cyberpunk GTA Online kind of thing, the hair on my arm was just like, how bad do you want that, Chris?
Like GTA Online. I'm glad that it's a few years down the road because, you know, they finish the main game now, and then, you know, once that's done, they can go and focus on the multiplayer and make sure the multiplayer is really polished versus just being kind of like a tag-on, you know, feature.
Yeah, and we also have to take into account CD Projekt Red did a great job of updating The Witcher with more missions, new Game Plus aspects, even DLC. So we should expect that maybe some of this added time to the release, and knowing a year or two after release we'll have multiplayer, we should expect some amazing DLC. What's that DLC going to be like? Where are we going to be in that journey with Cyberpunk, that when we hear that your dialogue scenes are going to be more interactive than you've ever had dialogue scenes like this before, what does that mean for other games that take this same model and go, we got to have more interactive dialogue scenes? Now it can't just be that the player clicks through it. They've got to pay attention to what's going on in front of them. Because then the next thing they know, they might end up in a shootout, and they shouldn't have just been pounding through the chat sequence.
Cyberpunk has really raised the bar. CD Projekt Red has, really elevated what we know as games. Really, I'm really looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077. I anticipate we're going to get even more news where I'm like, this is again mind-blowing. Like, I am unsurprised at how surprising this news is for whatever their next announcement is.
That's a great way to put it. It's like, no, I'm surprised, but I'm unsurprised about my surprise, because it's like every time you tell me anything about this game, I know I'm going to be surprised. Yeah,
it's like,
it's hilarious.
In those like surveys or reviews, it's like, did they exceed your expectations? And a lot of companies are like, well, you can only really exceed someone's expectations once. I guess now Cyberpunk is meeting my expectations of always exceeding my expectations.
That's hilarious. That's a funny quote to put down for Cyberpunk. And I love what Legend of Gamer just said is a multiplayer would destroy all competition. They pull it off and it works. Yes, they could be in the position to be a dominant game in the multiplayer space. Again, we're probably years out from being able to actually see it in action. I just am like, with what you just said, I'm expecting to be blown away. I'm expecting you to exceed my expectations.
We've got another company that usually doesn't exceed our expectations, but it seems like they might in the future.
Yeah, and this could probably be circling around when you hear about a game like Cyberpunk and it does so well that EA is like, maybe we should be interested in acquisitions of these talented studios.
So during Electronic Arts' quarterly financial conference call for analysts and investors, Chief Financial Officer Blake Jorgensen talked about possible acquisitions.
So they were asked about the current state of the company regarding acquisitions of new studios. The question mentioned was, like, as an example, as a big asset currently for sale, likely hinting to maybe something like the Warner Brothers gaming division. But the answer didn't directly acknowledge the hint. So Jorgensen brought up the acquisition of Respawn as an example of what Electronic Arts usually does.
According to the executive, the best acquisitions in EA's history are those born from long-term relationships with the studio. What they try to do is buy great talent versus games. According to Jorgensen, that acquisition wasn't about Titanfall, but about the talent of the actual team.
And this is what Jorgensen said. He said, we were able to bring them into the fold, give them incredible support, and it was all driven by the fact that they had incredible talent. It wasn't about Titanfall.
He goes on to say, that's no offense to Titanfall. That's an amazing game, and, will we see a Titanfall at some point, at some time down the road? But it was really about the team.
And we also hear that the publisher is, quote unquote, more interested than ever in acquisitions.
Jorgensen goes on to say, we're always looking at that. We'll always continue to look at that. We hope we can find more. It might take some time, but trust that we're more interested than ever because we see that talent and building great new franchises is critical to the long-term business.
Jorgensen also mentioned that while he can't comment on specific cases, EA gets to, quote, take a look at almost everything that is for sale.
I love how his statement about Titanfall was like, yeah, it was like Titanfall didn't matter. It was about the team. No offense to Titanfall, but it was about the team. I mean, couldn't you argue that every project is about the team?
Yes, you could. That is a very strong observation of that. Maybe I would like to think that maybe he was trying to say it wasn't about acquiring the IP or gameplay that is Titanfall, but more about the team. And that's okay, but it also disregards what everyone loved about Respawn, which was Titanfall.
Right.
So it should have just been in that same sentence. It was both about Respawn and about Titanfall, but Titanfall wasn't possible if Respawn hadn't been the team that it was to make it possible.
And we've heard a lot of hints about, Warner Brothers' gaming division, about who's going to buy that. There's been a lot of, rumors, a lot of conversation. This statement from EA seems pretty generic. It seems like they're just looking for an acquisition they want a team. They don't want to acquire necessarily a game or an IP. So I wonder, what that really means for them. EA, I feel like, is kind of at a turning point. They've been, known for terrible microtransactions. I think that they're, actually rebuilding their reputation, or have been lately.
Yeah.
And I wonder what they're going to do next, because I think that they could, come back as being a beloved brand.
Yeah, and that's where this might actually be, is like Electronic Arts is taking a look at the market, and they're saying who either needs funding, who needs to be bought up so that they can be better, financed for projects down the road that we want to put the EA name on board with. I think that is something here that we shouldn't be surprised if there's an acquisition pretty soon. Electronic Arts drops some big money or starts to buy up different smaller third-party developers, maybe start to offer a partnership program like Epic, because what they'll do in this process, if they go out and they start to acquire some of these smaller studios or these mid-tier studios that just need that little bit of a bigger space to help bolster an idea that they may have, it will help their reputation to shift. Because if that studio that they acquire ends up being one of those that has a community that's really behind it, they'll end up ultimately getting behind EA. I would just forewarn EA, don't do what Activision's done. Steer away from the Activision model, please.
Don't do it. We've seen this, become increasingly common, that big companies will take on, smaller studios or, smaller teams of developers. And I think it's good for both. Oftentimes smaller developers have been forced to be, really more creative, or have to be more economical with how they create their game because of limitations of money and time and the size of their team. So a lot of them are really, really talented. They just haven't had that financial backing to really, support their projects. And I think it's good for them. They can have that financial backing, and these bigger companies can also have these really, really talented, creators and developers work for them. Right now, a lot of companies are trying to put out more and more games, which is very difficult. You can't rush games. You really can't. And if you want,
and we're in a space now as a gaming community that's okay with time being added to a game's development too.
Right, it's okay. I mean, people roll their eyes at delays, but ultimately they're still gonna buy the game when it comes out eventually. Like, there's no problem with delays, but if you want good games, you definitely have to have a good team and have good people on board.
Yeah, and that's kind of an added feature, not an added layer to the whole Respawn, the team from Respawn leaving to go do their own thing, because crunch culture is, it's like, okay, if this is true, EA should address that and should do their best to eliminate that from being, the working environment, because you're probably not going to get another Respawn team who's going to allow themselves to jump in and do that when there are other places like Epic Games offering better deals to not come in and be affected by the crunch culture. So EA should really pay attention to that. I hope they're paying attention to that, and they're not just like, oh, we're just going to acquire, Warner Brothers games and put our name on it as a distributor because we just want the IPs. They really, I hope, come to the table of, okay, when we acquire a studio, how do we help make that studio better versus how do we make them do what we want them to do because we just want them to be successful with our name on it at any cost.
Absolutely. I think it's really good that a lot of developers are really demanding that they be treated well. They're thinking, if I have to be in an environment with horrible crunch culture and creative ideas aren't heard, I can leave. I can go somewhere else. I can make my own studio. I think that's great that, I wish that people didn't have to demand for, having a good work-life balance, but unfortunately, a lot of people often do. But I'm glad to see that there is, this battle to have good games, great games with a great working environment as well.
Yep, and the more that happens, and the more we see individuals speaking out, like the whole situation that went down with Ubisoft, and the more we see people like from former Respawn Entertainment individuals, the more that we see this, the more we should see the industry respond and apply themselves to that model that you just said, that not only is it a great game, but it's also a great work environment too. And if EA does go the route that they seem to kind of go, it'll backfire quickly, and there will be a community that will respond to their, oh, we're looking at the market. Yeah, I'm not going to let you buy me. I'm not agreeing to that. And that could ultimately hurt them for the future.
Right, the internet community is very vocal. I love that gamers are often so plugged in online, and if there's something wrong with a company, you're gonna hear it, and hopefully some justice is gonna come from it. If no justice comes from it, at least everyone knows that this company did a really bad job.
That's true, and they'll be like, we're not gonna buy your product anymore. Fine, no justice, no income. Here you go, taking our money elsewhere.
To tease some of the stories that we'll be bringing to you next week. So the first story on Monday will be about Haven and how a Haven developer wants to use the PS5's 120 FPS and DualSense haptics to make gliding feel as smooth as possible.
It's pretty cool. And then also going to be talking about more Stardew Valley as the collector's edition for Switch and PC is eco-friendly and eminently displayable.
It's super adorable. I can't wait to show everyone how just cute this is. You get a little deed and you can put your name in it, and it's like, oh, this property was passed down to you by grandpa. It just says, it's really cute. Yeah, there's a collector's edition physical copy. It comes with all sorts of cool things with it, and I believe it is out now. But that does bring us to the end of our news for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, everyone, being here, joining us, adding amazing comments to the conversation, being a part of this DGN fam. We are live Monday through Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. right here on Twitch at Daily Gaming News. Also, remember, you can check out even our previous episodes on YouTube, so please go there, like and subscribe, and see any of the video game content that we've been covering.
And we post all of our VODs. If you're watching a VOD, we are live again 1 to 2 p.m. every weekday. There is no DGN on the weekends. I had some people be like, oh, wait, isn't the news on right now? I'm like, no, it's the weekend. There's no news.
We take a break.
Right, we take a break. I do appreciate the enthusiasm, however. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone. It has been a blast. I am Kaisa.
I am Marrone. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you all on Monday.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.